They found her bones by accident, buried in a monastery wall, curled like a child, hair tangled around her ribs like ivy on stone. The monks claimed it was a forgotten nun, but the locals whispered otherwise. They said she was the girl with the golden braid, the one who sang to the birds and vanished before she turned 16. The one whose father made a deal. You may think you know her story. A tower, a witch, a prince, a rescue. But what if that tale was only the veil? What if the truth was older, colder, and far more brutal? Long before fairy tales were inked in books and softened for bedtime, they were told in whispers around fires. Tales of girls who were locked away, not for their safety, but for silence. Of hunger that birthed curses. Of herbs with names that sounded like prayers or warnings. Rapunzel wasn't the first. She may not even have been the last. Once a woman cried out in childbirth, and what she delivered was not just a child, but a craving that hollowed her out. She begged her husband for the plant she dreamed of, one that grew in a walled garden next to their home. Not gold or meat or milk. No, she wanted the rampion, a wild herb that tasted like earth and spring. And secrets? He refused her once, twice, but the third time her body had grown so thin and her eyes so sunken that he feared she would die of wanting. So he climbed the wall. He found the garden thick with thorns, moonlight catching on dew like broken glass. He plucked a handful of rampion and fled. The next night he returned, but this time he wasn't alone. A voice, like dry wind over stone, stopped him mid-step. The woman who owned the garden, if she could still be called a woman, stepped from the shadows. Her skin was pale as lichen, and her eyes glowed with something not human. She smiled. When he begged for mercy, not with warmth, but with hunger, he could have the herb, but she would have the child, and so it was. When the baby was born, soft and golden and shrieking, the sorceress came. She named her Rapunzel, after the plant that had cost so much, and carried her away, wrapped in black cloth. Rapunzel grew in a house deep in the forest, far from eyes or roads. Her hair grew faster than the seasons turned, and by 12 it fell to her knees like melted gold. She never met another soul besides the witch, never touched stone that wasn't carved by hand, never saw a man, until the tower. One morning she awoke in a new place, the walls curved, the ceiling high, no stairs, no door, just one arched window and a single mirror. She cried out, but the only answer was silence. And then a voice, the witch's voice, calling her name from the forest floor, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. She obeyed. Her braid unfurled like rope, strong and thick. Hand over hand the witch climbed. Seasons passed. Birds became her only companions, and the mirror her only friend. She combed her hair each day and sang to keep from breaking. Then one evening she heard a different voice. A prince, young and reckless, had heard her song while hunting and followed it through the trees. He saw the witch climb the braid and watched from behind a pine. When she vanished, he stepped forward and called up in the same words. She let down her hair, thinking it was her captor, but instead a stranger appeared in the window, breathless and beautiful, his eyes filled with something she had never seen. Before awe he didn't speak for several moments, neither did she. Then he said, "You sound like the wind through stained glass." She laughed. He returned the next night, and the next. They spoke for hours. Then came the silk he brought, her one strand each visit, pale, shimmering thread that she hid beneath the floorboards. She began to weave them at night, when the stars peeked in through the window. Each strand a promise, each not a heartbeat. A ladder was growing beneath her hands, but so was something else. One morning, as the witch combed her hair, said, "Why are my dresses so tight? My belly feels ... strange." The brush stopped. The silence cut the air. Then came the hiss. "Wicked child," the witch spat, "you've let the world in." She dragged Rapunzel to the mirror and raised the shears. The braid fell like a snake. The girl fell with it, not physically, but everything inside her unraveled. She was thrown into the wilderness, pregnant and alone, her hair hacked short and heartbroken. She wandered for days, weeks, until her feet bled. She gave birth in a cave, clutching roots for strength. Twin children, eyes wide and unblinking, entered the world under moonlight. She named them for stars she'd seen only once. The prince returned to the tower that night, calling up with the words they'd shared. The witch, smiling with teeth like broken shells, let down the severed braid. He climbed with joy until he saw her face. "The bird has flown," she hissed, "and now I'll take your sight too." He staggered, he screamed, he fell. The thorns at the base of the tower caught him, but not gently. They tore his eyes, and the world vanished into blackness. He wandered for years. His kingdom believed. Him dead, he walked through forests with a staff and dreams. He followed songs that weren't hers, until one day he heard it again, faint, fragile, familiar. He stumbled toward the sound, through bramble, into a clearing, and there she was, older, thinner, holding two children. She ran to him. Her tears fell into his eyes, and then he saw. Their story ended in a castle, with doors and windows and no locks. But not every story ends that way. This version, the one with the prince and the reunion, is the one you may know, but it's only one telling. The Grimm brothers wrote it in 1812 as part of their effort to preserve old German folk tales. What began as oral traditions passed down through generations became pages in a book for children. But before they softened it, removing the pregnancy, the twins, the fall, the story was far more haunting. In Italy. A version appeared in 1634 by Giambattista Busso. There the girl is named Petronella, taken from her mother by an ogress, not a witch. She is clever, not passive. She uses magical acorns to escape. One becomes a wolf, one a lion, one a dog, each slowing the ogress, chasing her down. She survives, not by love, but wit. Then, in 1698, French writer Charles de Calmont de la Force wrote Personette. It's closer to Rapunzel. The pregnancy is back, the children, the blinding, the miraculous tears. It isn't a tale of rescue, it's a story of consequence. And yet, all of these women are named for herbs. Rapunzel, Rampion, Petronella, parsley. Personette, another parsley derivative. Why herbs? Because the craving for them begins the curse. Because what grows can also wound. Because the mothers wanted something, and the price was always there. Daughter, but deeper still, there's a woman whose story lies under stone. A woman with no tower but walls. No witch, but a father. Her name was Barbara. She lived in the 3rd century in the city of Heliopolis, now Baalbek in Lebanon. Her father was a wealthy pagan nobleman, and she, curious and bright, converted to Christianity in secret. When he tried to marry her off, she refused. To punish her, he locked her in a tower, but Barbara used the solitude to deepen her beliefs. When builders came to renovate a bathhouse on the property, she instructed them to add a third window to symbolize the Holy Trinity. Her father returned, saw it, and realized what she had done. He turned her in. She was arrested, tortured, and eventually executed. Her long hair was cut as humiliation before death, and her father, by legend, was struck by lightning on the hill where he killed her. Her body was moved, first to Constantinople, then to Kiev, and to this day it lies encased in glass beneath a cathedral dome. The Catholic Church quietly removed her from the liturgical calendar in 1969, citing a lack of evidence. But people still visit her tomb, still whisper prayers, still believe Dot, and her story, a defiant girl, a locked tower, a severed braid, seeped into folklore, into the roots of the story we now call Rapunzel, but perhaps it goes deeper still. But what if Barbara wasn't the origin either? What if she was just one thread in a much older tapestry? Across oceans and empires, the same image repeats. A girl locked away, her body a prophecy, her hair a symbol. The names shift, the towers change, but the story stays. It sings through centuries like wind through iron bars. Dot. In the 10th century, in the Persian epic Shahnameh, there is a woman named Rudaba. She stands at the top of a tower, her heart already lost to a man she has never touched. The Prince Zel waits below, unsure how to reach her. Her solution: she uncoils her hair. It spills from the window like a river of night, black and gleaming. She tells him to climb. He hesitates, not from fear, but reverence. I might hurt you, he says, and instead asks for a rope. It is tenderness, not lust, that holds him back, and yet the motif is there. The hair ladder, the forbidden love, the window high above a world not meant for girls. Then there's Sif, not a mortal, but a Norse goddess. Her golden hair was legendary, so radiant it shimmered like wheat fields in the sun. But Loki, the trickster god, crept into her bed while she slept and cut it all off. Not for malice, not for war, just to prove he could. When her husband, Thor, discovered the theft, he demanded reparation. Loki, in fear, turned to the dwarves, who spun her new hair from threads of gold. Magical, eternal, but something had already been stolen. Because Sif's hair wasn't just hair, it was her power. It was fertility, it was harvest, it was the cycle of life. The ancient poets even called gold Sif's hair. And there's a plant still known today in some dialects as the hair of Sif, a golden moss-like herb clinging to wet stone. A plant, a goddess, a symbol of cut beauty. Just like Rapunzel, whose name is also a plant. Just like Barbara, whose locks were severed before death. Just like the faceless girl in every village story told in a hush, the one who let her hair down and paid for it. And then the oldest, the darkest, they know, in Greek myth. She was the daughter of Acrisius, king of Argos. A prophecy warned him, your daughter's son will kill you. So he did what kings do best. He tried to outrun fate by locking her away, not in a tower, but in a sealed bronze chamber deep underground, a living tomb, polished smooth, without doors or windows. But prophecies, like rivers, find cracks. Zeus came to her not as a man, but as a shower of gold, a celestial trick, a storm of divine light. She conceived her son, Perseus, would go on to slay Medusa, save Andromeda, and yes, kill his grandfather, just as foretold. Acrisius built walls to contain destiny. All he did was delay it. You see, over and over, the locked girl doesn't stay locked. Not because she escapes, but because something reaches in. Love, or lust, or fate, or fear. And always she pays the price. Sometimes it's her voice that betrays her. Sometimes her belly. Sometimes it's her hair, a ladder, a rope. A symbol too loud to ignore. In every version, her body becomes the battleground. In every version, someone decides she must be hidden away for her own good, for her purity, for the world's safety. But the story never ends there. Fairy tales, especially the old ones, are not kind. They are full of iron and teeth. The witches are cruel. The fathers are crueler. The princes often are useless. But the girl endures. She survives blindness, betrayal, banishment. She gives birth alone in the woods. She sings when no one listens. She weaves ladders from silk and dreams. She is not just the victim of the story. She is the story. The idea of hair as power is ancient. In some Native American cultures, warriors grew their hair long because it was thought to hold spiritual energy. In the Bible, Samson's strength lay in his uncut hair. When Delilah betrayed him and cut it, he was rendered helpless. But even he, like Rapunzel's prince, found redemption in the end, hair regrown, eyes open, vengeance served. Hair becomes legacy. Hair becomes rebirth, and the act of cutting it, that is, control, humiliation, transformation. Barbara's hair was shorn before death. Sif's was stolen as a joke. Rapunzel's was cut in punishment. Across culture after culture, the severing of hair is more than a cosmetic act. It is a ritual of silencing. So why do these stories keep coming back? Because they are not just about girls, they are about power. Who has it, who fears it, who tries to bury it. Towers are not just prisons, they are monuments to fear. To the lengths people will go to contain what they cannot control. In medieval Europe, girls were sent to convents for disobedience. In some African cultures, children born with too much hair or too early were considered cursed. In Victorian England, women's hair was braided into jewelry, mourning tokens to keep a part of the dead alive. Even now, in classrooms and courtrooms, long hair is debated, regulated, policed. It is still a symbol. It still threatens. And then there's the plants. Why do these stories always begin with a mother's craving? An herb, a leaf, something growing on the wrong side of a wall, something forbidden. Rampion, parsley, campanula. In folklore, plants weren't just food. They were spells. Craving them could mean a curse was coming, a warning that someone, somewhere, had trespassed into nature's domain, and nature always wants payment. In Rapunzel's story, the mother's desire opens the door. Her hunger not for gold, not for power, but for something green and wild, sets the chain in motion. The witch doesn't steal the child. She collects a debt, a bargain is struck, and the girl becomes collateral. But here's the twist. Maybe the witch isn't the villain. Maybe she's the only one who keeps her promise. She raises the girl, she teaches her, she visits her daily vice, and when she learns she's been betrayed, she punishes the betrayal. Cruel, yes, but consistent. It's the prince who comes and goes. It's the father who trades flesh for flowers. The witch, in her way, is constant. Fairy tales evolve. The Grimm brothers rewrote Rapunzel to remove the pregnancy. Later editions painted the prince as noble, the girl as pure. Disney gave her a frying pan and a pet lizard. But the heart of the story, a girl locked away, her hair reaching down like a cry that remained, because it speaks to something deep, the fear of freedom, the danger of desire, the impossibility of hiding truth, and maybe, just maybe, it speaks to someone real. In the Ukrainian city of Kyiv, beneath the golden dome of St. Volodymyr's Cathedral, lies a glass case. Inside it, a body rests, bones wrapped in silk. A plaque names her Barbara, Saint Martyr, legend. People come from across the world to see her. They kneel, they cry, they believe, but even if she was real, even if the bones belonged to the girl whose father killed her, does it change anything? Or does it make the story more haunting? Because if Barbara existed, and Dano existed, and Sif and Rudabar and Rapunzel in all their forms, then what are we left with? Not just a fairy tale, not just a bedtime story, but a pattern, a history, a warning. Girls locked away are never forgotten. They become myths, saints, spirits. They sing in towers and caves. They pass through walls in showers of gold. They leave their hair behind like breadcrumbs for the next lost girl to follow. And maybe that's why we keep telling their stories, not because they're pretty, but because they are true. You've heard of Rapunzel. Now listen for the ones who came before, and the ones still waiting. Click here to uncover another tale you thought you knew. Sleeping Beauty, the girl who didn't just sleep, but was cursed, forgotten, and awakened by something far stranger than a kiss. We'll see you there.